Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today. Happy Monday. I am again joined by my friend Chris Cillizza. Nice to see you.
Hello, my friend. So what's on your radar?
Let's get right to it. Right to it. Here we go. Well, a little bit later, we'll have Trump's battle with local leaders over their plans to bring the cops into their area. We'll also talk about what Sergei Lavrov said about Ukraine's right to exist. But first, some good news from the nation's capital following the federal takeover of Washington, D.C.'s police that was spearheaded by President Trump 2 weeks ago. Crime has decreased markedly. That's right. D.C. saw a noticeable drop in carjackings and robberies. And while there are obviously statistical fluctuations from week to week that might not necessarily have anything to do with policy, it's nevertheless the case the city has had 0 homicides since August 13th. And that's the bottom line. Deploying more law enforcement resources and more police officers in accordance with the president's wishes has given Washington a murder-free week, and that should be good news no matter what your politics are. Unfortunately, I suspect many national Democrats, unlike local Democrats, might be frustrated that the Trump plan for crime has yielded some undeniable successes. Now, nobody wants there to be crime, of course. I don't think Democrats do. I'm not saying that. But then again, nobody in progressive circles wants Trump to be right about anything. Just watch how Meet the Press's Kristen Welker lamely tried to fact-check JD Vance during an interview over the weekend in which the vice president gave Trump credit for bringing crime under control. Let's watch.
What we have control over is the nation's capital. And if you look, for example, at the murder rate in D.C., it rivals some of the worst cities, the most violent cities anywhere in the world. That's a disgrace for our nation. That's a disgrace for the residents who live in D.C., who just want to take their kids to a park or walk down Union Station or take their family out for a bite to eat without being accosted by a vagrant or a violent criminal.
Crime has dropped
they should have that right.
Though, in the nation's capital.
Crime has dropped over 35% in the nation's capital in 10 days because of what Donald J. Trump has done.
Now, Vance continued, asserting that quietly accepting decline in crime and disorder in our cities, well, that's a choice, and it's one the Trump administration is no longer going to tolerate.
When you make such big progress in a matter of a week and a half, I think that you step on the gas and try to make D.C. even more safe. And here's the thing, Kristen, we don't have to live like this. My message to my fellow citizens here in D.C. or all across the country would be that allowing vagrants and armed robberies to take over your city, that's a policy choice. What President Trump is showing is that if you just empower local law enforcement to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we can take back American streets.
National Democrats and the mainstream media need to recognize that that's a powerful message. And a winning message. Polls show that Americans are very concerned about the things Vance is talking about, and they want solutions. Now, look, it's perfectly reasonable, even healthy, to be concerned about over-policing. Civil liberties are extremely important. And we've seen how government authorities can use a crisis as a pretext to implement heavy-handed measures that make our lives worse without actually improving safety. See the coronavirus pandemic for numerous examples of that. We don't want to become a papers, please society where everybody has to show identification just to walk down the street. Battalions of federal troops are a fixture of what every metro station and green space in the city. That's going to lead to abuses, to innocent people who are minding their own business, getting harassed or even detained for no reason. In my radars over the past few weeks, I've given you some of my ideas, which are not unique to me at all, just things I've learned from reading about the city's problems. We need to fix A, the crime lab, make sure it can process ballistics evidence, giving prosecutors the tools they need to bring cases against violent criminals. We need to appoint and confirm judges who take the crime problem in this city seriously and are accountable to the people who live here. And we need to give homicide detectives more resources, and we probably got to hire more of them. We need to better patrol the city's green spaces and get the mentally ill and drug-addicted people occupying them into treatment programs first before we give them public housing. They just wreck the public housing if the underlying addiction isn't dealt with. The increased federal presence with national law enforcement working alongside local cops, that's accomplished some, not all, but some of those goals. Others still remain. But yes, more cops means less crime. It's on some level that simple. And if Democrats don't like the Trump plan, okay, what would you like to do differently? Seriously, I'm all ears. I can't wait to hear your solution to the crime problem. Bonus points if it actually saves the taxpayers' money. You know I'll be on board. What I expect, of course, is the opposite. Dems will propose new programs, more housing for the homeless, more educational programs, more progressivism. I don't know if they're still recommending abolishing the police entirely. New York City's likely next mayor, Zohran Mamdani, was talking about that idea as recently as 5 years ago. Look, this agenda is simply not a political winner. I don't know what else to say. Trump's is. I know it. Voters know it. Deep down, Most Democrats probably know it too, at least the ones who actually live in the real world and have to deal with the consequences of disordered cities. Progressive elites safely ensconced within gated communities that pay for private security, like actually so many members of our professional media class, well, they might actually think about not doing anything is just fine for them. It's a fine solution. But most normal people know better, which is why I suspect what Trump has been doing over the last couple of weeks here will be popular.
And I think he'll keep doing. I mean, that's the other thing that I would say is like, yes, remember, I think it's so funny that people don't listen to what Donald Trump says. So it's like, as soon as the federal, what are we calling it? Not takeover, but federal involvement in D.C., in the D.C. Police Department. As soon as Trump said that, he literally said, and other cities should be paying attention. And then over the weekend, it was like, well, the Washington Post reported that the Pentagon is developing a plan for the National Guard to go into Chicago. And people were like, what?
Right.
And I was like, he literally said that, and he's been fixated on Chicago probably ever since Barack Obama got elected. So, yeah, the point that struck home most for me there, Robby, was what's Democrats' plan? You can't just say, well, the crime problem isn't as bad as Donald Trump is saying, which is true, but also not a political solution. Not even a policy solution. Like, no one thinks that what's the acceptable amount of crime? If Democrats are having to answer that question, they're doomed.
Whenever you're in the position of explaining that, well, things are not as bad as you think, you're just always losing the political context, which frankly is unfair, because sometimes problems do get exaggerated by political figures.
Absolutely, and perception doesn't match reality.
So I get that. And I too, I'm libertarian. I don't want to pay for giant numbers of armed troops everywhere. Like, I don't want to do that. But the baseline level of crime in the city was just too high. People who live here know that. That it's not, it like feels unsafe, and it's not just a feeling. It's because it is unsafe, kind of.
And I do think like the whole it's down, which is a point I have made. It is down. But it's down from extremely high highs.
Murder spiked in 2023 in a way that
out of COVID, there was a huge spike. So it's like, yes, it's down, but we all know this. I mean, if you ever pay any attention to politics, much less policy, you know everybody's got a number and a data point that can prove whatever they wanted to prove. You kind of move you cut off the time frame. Everybody's growing and succeeding. So the thing that I wonder about, I want what you think about it, is like, I'm with you on Democrats. The thing I don't understand is this, like, are we just going to surge law enforcement in all these cities for time infinite? You know what I mean? Like, is there a plan? Donald Trump's already said he wants to extend beyond the 30 days that he gets. In Chicago, how long are we going to have people there? Now in LA, people were there for a while, National Guard was there for a while. It's like, this isn't a long-term solution. It's exactly to your point. We need to fix the underlying problems. Surging more police and law enforcement, of course, is going to lower crime.
Well, and LA and DC it is partly federally run, so you have some legitimacy there. LA was in response to rioting, where if there's going to be riots, guess what? National troops are coming in. We've solved that. We've decided that as a society. I know that offends the editorial page of the New York Times or whatever it is when Tom Cotton suggests it, but people disagree. But to just send the national troops to deal with what is unfortunately garden variety crime that exists in cities, I agree with you. How can that be a long-term solution? And then, if the summer's the most violent time in the city, you could understand you do it for a month.
Do like a surge.
In D.C., you're going to have some positive effects, as we're seeing, but I don't know if that's a solution.
I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's simple. More law enforcement on the streets means lower crime, but then how do we fund more law enforcement over time, and is that a solution?
Democrats are going to have to come up with something, though, or they're going to have to get on board. President Trump is ramping up this crime crackdown, as we're discussing. We'll talk about what cities he may be targeting next. We'll be right back. Well, the National Guard could be coming to a city near you. President Trump is reportedly planning to send troops to other cities like Chicago, Baltimore, continue his crime crackdown. As you may recall, the National Guard is currently in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
State and local leaders are not taking well to the news. They say crime is under control, according to the New York Times. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and I will note 2028 Democratic candidate, probably bashed the plan, saying Trump is, quote, attempting to manufacture a crisis. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, deeply unpopular, is also blasting the proposal. Let's take a look.
This is not the role of the military. This is not their role. You know, the brave men and women who signed up to serve our country did not sign up to occupy American cities. This is costly, illegal, and unconstitutional. I'm going to use every single tool that is at my disposal in order to keep the people of the city safe.
Meanwhile, Maryland Governor Wes Moore is trading barbs with Donald Trump over the decision. It comes after Moore invited the president to walk the streets of Baltimore with him. Trump is lambasting Moore on Truth Social, writing, quote, "As president, I would much prefer that he clean up this crime disaster before I go for a walk." Not sure why that's in quotes. "Stop talking and get to work, Wes. I'll then see you on the streets. Also, I gave Wes Moore a lot of money to fix his demolished bridge. I will now have to rethink that decision?"
Can't take back the bridge. Meantime, Pentagon officials have confirmed the National Guard will be mobilizing in 19 states in the coming weeks. Up to 1,700 guardsmen will head to the states to assist with Trump's illegal immigration and crime crusade. So, we are bringing this to more cities. Continue the
Coming
conversation
to a city
we were just
near
having.
you.
Yeah. Now, Chicago and Baltimore are also cities that have had, again, significant levels of crime.
Yep.
It's not up, I don't think, too dramatically
No,
in
probably
Chicago.
not year over year, but it's still high.
It's a baseline level
Yes.
of crime more than we want.
I mean, this is, again...
And they're places run by, that have been run by Democrats for years and years and years.
So, 2 points. One, let me make my second point first.
Sure.
You know, if I'm looking for a city that I would say crime is, if not out of control, in a really bad place, I would say like a Memphis, Tennessee,
yes,
for example. Now, Memphis, Tennessee is a very Democratic city in a very Republican state. It has a Republican governor. The legislature is all Republican. So, we've not seen that yet. Baltimore, Democratic city and Democratic state. Chicago, Democratic city and Democratic state. D.C., Democratic city and federalized District of Columbia. So I'm interested to see that. But I do think it is really important is that the message can't be, and Brandon Johnson did this, and I just don't think it works. It can't be like, everything's cool here, because I don't think that's the lived reality of people in these places. One of the things I was struck by, the Washington Post did a poll last week about D.C., and the results were totally fascinating. It was like 73% of people don't want Donald Trump's federal takeover. 63% of people, D.C. residents, think it will probably work. Well, it's like, well, I hate Donald Trump, but also like more cops probably will work and I don't feel totally safe. And that to me, that's where Democrats have to find something to say. You cannot be for an acceptable amount of crime.
And I would be the first to say, facts don't care about your feelings. Sorry, if everything's fine and the government's going to use this as a pretext to expand police power or whatever, I would call them out for it. And I used to make these arguments, especially when I felt like the media, if it bleeds, it leads, makes it seem like everything's getting worse. And, over the early 90s, we started to finally see huge collapse in handgun crimes throughout the country. Like the murder rate fell by half, and the trajectory of things was really good. So then if you were, constantly complaining about crime, you're like, okay, well, things are getting better. Every year they're getting better. But that trend,
it's leveled
paused
at best.
It paused, came up in some ways, and that is something that should concern us.
Well, and I do remind people, and it's so hard because of where his story has gone, but even before September 11th, the whole Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, prosecutor, he's tough, and the left did not like what Rudy Giuliani was doing in New York City. Right. But in a lot of ways, it was the story of New York City was a story of revival.
New Yorkers liked it enough to keep
tourists
voting
are coming in. Exactly. He kept winning. And again, it's hard. It's like when I talk about John Edwards. Everything that's come after, John Edwards was right about some things like two Americas, but Rudy Giuliani, that was a time where America's cities, there was sort of an acceptance that, okay, we're going to have to sacrifice some things to get what we want, which is to feel safe as residents and for tourists to feel safe because they drive the economy. And I wonder if we're headed back to a little bit of that. I don't mean a Republican in charge of a Democratic city. I don't think Chicago is electing a Democrat anytime soon. But look, Brandon Johnson's approval rating is, it's worse than used car dealers, most politicians, and journalists. It's really bad. So it's, at some point, if what you're doing isn't working, both from a policy and policing perspective, but also from a politics perspective, you said it in the open, and I think it's so important. you can't just hate it because Donald Trump does it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that.
Do you think the defund the police, abolish the police, whatever it is, that rhetorical fervor that overtook the party in 2020, that's totally dead? That's been beaten back. That has no power in the Democratic Party.
It is one of the single stupidest political phrases I've ever.
Zoran is a
abolish ICE is in the running with defund the police for stupidest slogans.
Zoran Mamdani is an out and proud Democratic socialist. He does not run from his stances by and large.
He's running from
that one. He pretends he never said that.
I mean, it is just so stupid because. Follow the logic of that. Okay, we defund the police. Yeah. Now what? Yeah. I mean, there's no one wants to feel unsafe in their community.
I mean, I wish it could be done. I don't want to pay taxes at all. My ideal tax rate, libertarian here, 0%.
It's like that scene from Armageddon with Bruce Willis when they have to fly. They're the miners and they have to fly to mine a big asteroid. They put a nuclear bomb in and they say we've got a couple conditions. One. We never pay taxes again, ever. It's like that kind of vibe.
Exactly.
No one thinks that a world without the police is one that, do the police have, of course, any institution, yes, there are bad apples. I remember when I used to work at CNN, people would be like, well, I saw James O'Keefe do a secret interview with fill in the blank. I'm like, number one, I don't know who that person is. It was some camera person I met in Atlanta. Oh, okay. And then two, it would be like, so what do you think of it? I'm like, thousands of people work here. Are there some people that aren't on board? Of course. It's like any big institution. So yes, I am not saying the police are this benevolent everywhere. At the same time, yes, defund the police is one of the dumbest political things, and I think that Democrats will continue to struggle with it because, the other thing, Robby, is I do think it's certainly not all of the base, but there are elements of the Democratic base who actually still believe that. Now, Zoran Mamdani might not own it, right? Because I think he understands, even in New York, it's not, that's not a doable thing. But that's the issue they have going forward, too, is some people in the party, it's we'll just walk away from the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. Well, some people put the DEI stuff at the center of who they are in the Democratic base. So I'm not sure you can just be like, it's bad politically, we can't ever talk about it again. And I wonder if not defunding the police and abolishing ICE, a lot of these protests are like, why are these people out on the streets? I think most people are like, okay, I don't love that there's all these troops out. Yeah. At the same time, I like to feel safe. We can hold.
Right. And I don't want anybody harassed by the police it's annoying if you be asked, what are you doing here? This is my property. Get off my lawn. I fully channel that. That's a proud, individualist,
libertarian
American spirit. I get it, I'm for it, but we just have to do something in some of these cities.
That's exactly right. Something has to be done. The solution can't be, well, crime is down from when it was super high and this is okay, I guess. Yeah. Try something different, Brandon Johnson. I'm not saying you got to try Trump's thing, but try something different.
Need something to do differently to run on. Russia's foreign minister is saying next up that, yes, Ukraine does have a right to exist, but it's a little bit complicated. We'll discuss that next. Don't go anywhere. An interesting development in the Russia-Ukraine war peace talks. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov said in an interview with NBC that Ukraine, quote, does have the right to exist, but with a caveat.
NBC's Kristen Welker asked Lavrov about a statement Russian President Vladimir Putin made in June when he said, quote, I consider the Russian and Ukrainian people to be one nation. In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. Kristen then posited the question, does Putin believe Ukraine has the right to exist? Here was Lavrov's response.
Ukraine has the right to exist, provided it must let people go. The people whom they call terrorists, whom they call specious, and who, during a referenda, several referenda in Novorossiya, in Donbass, in Crimea, decided that they belong to the Russian culture.
Those referenda Lavrov was talking about were from 2022 when Russian state media said that certain Ukrainian regions like the Donbass and Donetsk largely backed Russian annexation. Meanwhile, Vice President JD Vance also discussed the war with Welker on Sunday. Here's what he had to say about the U.S.'s role in any security agreements for Ukraine.
The president's been very clear. There are not going to be boots on the ground in Ukraine, but we are going to continue to play an active role in trying to ensure that the Ukrainians have the security guarantees and the confidence they need to stop the war on their end.
So I've been pleased with the diplomacy taking place to bring this horrific war to an end. The reality is that Russia has occupied parts of Ukraine that I don't think anyone has any reasonable plan to get back on Ukraine's behalf. I hope there is a security agreement for the rest of Ukraine that doesn't involve U.S. troops there, but from the rest of Europe. And the Russia says, okay, that's fine by us, and then there's going to be no more conquest. So that sounds good to me.
The thing that's hard about it is I understand the Zelensky position, which is like, we're not giving any of our borders up because it's a slippery slope in the long run, and that Putin won't stop.
Yeah.
At the same time, to your point, what's the alternative? I mean, we talk about this in everything. What's the other plan? Right?
No one has one.
It seems very unlikely. The only way that Ukraine would be able to take back the regions it's had lost from Russia, in theory, I think, would be American involvement or heavy European involvement, right? That was certainly not going to happen in America, and I think unlikely to happen in Europe. So it's like, oh, okay, well, there's no way they're going to give up what they have now.
Ukraine doesn't have the manpower to accomplish that on its own.
And the realpolitik of the situation is this is probably close to the best deal that they're going to get, because the other alternative is
just
like
the whole country
an extension of the war.
Yeah.
Right? Even if the whole country doesn't get still bombing and bombing and bombing, and so it's, again, what are you solving for if you're Zelensky? Do you take 80-ish% of a good deal if that's on the table? Or do you hold out for 100% of a good deal, and knowing probably that 100% deal is not going to ever exist?
And then, speaking to what Lavrov said there specifically, I am no expert in the politics of the region. I don't know how the people in Donetsk and those regions now under Russian control feel. My understanding is that there is some polling to suggest that some of those people did want to be part of Russia. I'm not saying they speak for everyone or that's the right outcome. But then you do get into this weird position where, the borders of Europe have changed tons of times. I support everyone's right to live free of tyranny, but the reality is if the people in a group, most of them vote or signal in polling or referendum that they would rather be a part of this country than that country, can I really take the position that can't happen or has to be prevented at all costs? Of course not.
And again, it's what are you solving for? Are we aiming to end this war in a moderately equitable way?
Yeah.
And, is Russia probably going to get some of that territory? I don't see how the war ends unless America is involved militarily, which I think is very unlikely, unless there's some give. Now, maybe Putin doesn't give it all, but...
And even the most hawkish pro-Ukraine people do not say they want to send in ground troops.
No, it's
that's
off the table. Let's just deal with the world as it exists, not the world that you want to exist.
I say that same thing all the time on this issue. Nice to hear some agreement.
That's why they have me in as a co-host today. Good job, Robby. Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell's DOJ interview has been released. Hear all about what is in it next. Make sure you stick around.
The Trump administration has released the court interview transcripts with longtime Jeffrey Epstein confidant Ghislaine Maxwell, and boy, is there a lot to unpack. One of the biggest takeaways, Maxwell believes that Epstein did not kill himself. She says, if it is indeed murder, I believe it was an internal situation. And according to a bombshell CNN report, Ghislaine Maxwell was celebrated at a posh Clinton event and received a standing ovation that was years after the sex crimes accusations did emerge.
Some other big moments. Maxwell appeared to praise Trump and distance Trump from Epstein. The Epstein associate acknowledged the social relationship between the president and the disgraced financier, but get this, denied any connection between the president and the sex trafficking ring. She also denied Epstein victim Virginia Joffrey's claim that as a 16-year-old, she was approached by Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago and was invited to become Epstein's traveling masseuse. The woman said the two of them groomed her as a 16-year-old to perform sexual services, but Maxwell says she, quote, never recruited a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago.
As a reminder, Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence after being convicted in December 2021 of sex trafficking and conspiracy charges. The released transcripts, come as the Epstein files, has been a recent political lightning rod and has spurred an intense firestorm of uproar within the MAGA world. And I'm sure I'm going to hear people, mainstream media folks, saying, this is her just trying to get that pardon from Trump, and what she's saying is not true about him not being involved in the sex trafficking part. But of course, no one has put forth any evidence to the contrary. We all know that Trump, associated with Epstein, had a fallout with him, supposedly because Epstein was trying to take some of the masseuse employees, including that one, the one who was later the accuser in the Maxwell Epstein situation. At no point has it been alleged that Trump knew about any of this, the bad, gross abuse stuff, and had stopped associating with Epstein by that point. I had also said the same was true of the Clintons, although now they're suggesting that there was some.
Yeah, that is weird.
Very weird.
Yes, that's weird.
Because there are people later, like, for instance, Bill Gates, who continued to have an association with Jeffrey Epstein even after the conviction, which is real weird.
Yeah.
I'm willing to, give people the benefit of the how could
see
you
what
know?
You didn't see, right?
But then if you're still taking this guy's phone calls after he's been to prison for sex.
I think two things can absolutely be true at the same time. Number one, Ghislaine Maxwell wants a pardon or wants her sentence to be commuted, and she's going to say whatever it takes, she thinks, to have that. And again, I'll note, the interview was with the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, which I'm not sure why the Deputy Attorney General needs to go down there and interview her, but he is also Donald Trump's personal lawyer. I think that can be true, but it can also be true, your point. There's no evidence. I think that Donald Trump was involved and knew about any of this stuff. Like, I think Trump's biggest mistake in all of this was to pretend he and Epstein never knew one another. There's ample evidence they ran in similar circles in Florida, in New York to some extent, that Trump was on his plane. I will note, the times that we know Donald Trump was on the Epstein plane, one time he was with a very young, his daughter Tiffany Trump and his wife at the time, Marla Maples. One time he was on there with Eric Trump when Eric was like 10 or something. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks anything went on in those situations. So yes, oh my gosh, Donald Trump's in the Epstein files. Well, why? Anyone who's paying attention knew he was in the Epstein files. That is not proof of anything. Bill Clinton is in the Epstein files. I mean, and I think both of those things can be true. I kind of rolled my eyes with Ghislaine Maxwell says Donald Trump was a perfect gentleman and the greatest human that's ever lived. I mean, what's she gonna say? At the same time, it's proof of nothing. This is what I always say to people who say 2020 election was stolen. Okay, I'm not opposed to it, but you need to actually provide evidence that it was stolen. You can't just say it and then be like, there's a lot of wrongdoing. Okay, well, yes, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
People are saying there's wrongdoing.
Many people are saying it.
People are saying. Yeah.
I mean, it's not proof of anything. Just because they were friendly does not mean Donald Trump or Bill Clinton engaged in this sort of behavior. Unless and until I see proof of that, that's where I'm going to be.
It looks like Trump's conviction that this is not really a story and people on his team, his tribe, and his MAGA media movement should stop caring about it so much. I think that's going to win out. It's fading a little bit, I can tell. And, it's not good that a bunch of conservative influencers who've cared about this a lot for years are in the position of having to either criticize the administration, if not Trump himself, or look deeply hypocritical. So that's not good for the movement. It's a black eye, so to speak. But I think that's all it is, and it will quickly be forgotten.
I just think I don't know. I think it will kick around a little bit longer because Congress, I think, is going to vote on this discharge petition, and it's not going to do anything other than say at DOJ should release the Epstein files. It's not like they have to now do it. I can't wait to see a bunch
of documents that we've already seen many times already.
Right. So I think it's going to linger more probably than you do. But again, I am amazed. It's like Lucy and the football.
Yeah.
Democrats predicting that this is the bombshell that Donald Trump is going to. It's like, no, he's going to be in office. This isn't it. And there's not going to be one because one of the truest things the guy ever said was, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any support.
Yeah. Democrats, their interest in this is very sudden and very selective.
Yes.
They all grasped it immediately that, wait, we can make it sound like he knows there's something really damning. We can,
And this is the thing, to your point, political fires need to be stoked to keep going. I do think there will be some more calls, and does Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, have to do some kind of press conference, or Kash Patel? I don't know about that. Last week, the DOJ turned over some of these files. We don't know what.
She's pretty discredited on the subject in the eyes of MAGA because of the whole. It's on my desk. What was on your desk?
What was it?
What was on your desk?
You said you were looking at the client list. Now the client list doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, they botched it, right? This is a political self-inflicted, my gosh, error.
Too early.
I know. But the idea that this is the thread that if you pull, it all comes. There's just, I think Democrats are still engaged in this. Like somehow Donald Trump's not going to make it through 2028. And I just don't, there's just no evidence I see. Again, I'm always open. I think we both are the same in this. We're always open to prove to me, show me evidence that there's something really damning in here. But I am of the mind, I guess I'm cynical enough, I've been around Washington long enough, that if Donald Trump was implicated in the sexual exploitation and trafficking of young girls, that it would have come out. Someone would have leaked that somehow. Like, that is too big a bombshell that the former president, who's clearly running for president again, is litigating this case that he actually won the 2020 election. In all that time, the Biden Justice Department would never be like, hey, to a reporter, like, hey, I got something I want to tell. Like, it seems like how Washington works seems like that would not happen.
That bad at their jobs in terms of basic political undermining of Trump. It's hard to imagine.
And I love, Democrats do like to say, like, well, we don't politicize stuff. It's like, yeah, of course you do. Now, you may not do it as openly and as transparently as Donald Trump does, but there is the idea that politics, and the legal system are all these separate things that never intertwine. I mean, if you've lived in Washington and covered it for 15 minutes, you know that's not true.
They found reasons to prosecute him in multiple municipalities, multiple districts. They found there are attorneys general that tried to take him off the ballot based on various rationales. They would find reasons. They would find something if there was something.
I mean, it would have come out. Yeah. I really, truly believe that. And I know it's just if you understand how Washington works, there's no way that bombshell that the prosecutors are like, well, we'll just sit on this. Oh, Donald Trump's going to get elected president? Oh, that's fine. We have this evidence that he is, a sexual trafficker. No, I think waiting for a smoking gun on this, you're going to be waiting a long time.
I think it's becoming my generation's version of the JFK assassination.
So true.
If people believe that Johnson did it, they're going to believe it. If they believe the mafia did it, they're going to believe it. They believe Donald Trump committed sex crimes, and it's that no amount of contrary information
will prove it. Totally think that's right.
Next up, after the FBI's raid on John Bolton, a former Trump administration official thinks, well, he might be next. Stay with us. Now, the FBI raid on Friday on former National Security Advisor John Bolton's home has many former Trump officials asking, will I be next? Now, one former DHS official seems to think that might be the case.
Miles Taylor, a former deputy chief of staff at DHS during Trump's first term, was asked about the raid on Bolton's house on MSNBC. Take a listen.
How concerned are you that you could be next? Your home could be next.
Yeah, we expect it. I mean, really, we expect it. And that's what is so surreal about this. I mean, when my wife and I woke up and saw the news, she basically said to me, it's coming.
Now, Miles Taylor, you may remember, was behind the eye-catching anonymous 2018 New York Times op-ed entitled, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. I do remember that. A year later, he followed it up with an anonymously, easy for me to say, published book titled A Warning. He says that put him on the president's blacklist, and this raid proves Trump is out for revenge.
We have thought for years that Donald Trump, if he came back to power, would do something like this. To me, the Bolton raid was actually one of the biggest moments of this presidency because it showed that all the years of talking about how Trump would use the FBI as his foot soldiers to go after his enemies wasn't bluster, wasn't hyperbole. It is now very, very real.
Meanwhile, the president said Friday he was not told about the raid on Bolton's home ahead of time, but the Washington Post reports Trump was growing angry with Bolton in the days leading up to the raid. Allegedly, he was growing frustrated with his former national security advisor's criticism ahead of the meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier this month. Bolton told The Atlantic Putin has already won. He is the leader of a rogue state. He'll get a picture on U.S. soil with the President of the United States. That did prompt Trump to fire off this post on Truth Social. Very unfair media is at work on my meeting with Putin, constantly quoting fired losers and really dumb people like John Bolton, who just said that even though the meeting is on American soil, Putin has already won. What's that all we're talking about? We are winning on everything. The fake news is working overtime.
I'll admit I was hoping Robby did his Trump impersonation there, but he didn't. Meantime, JD Vance defended the raid of Bolton's home and office on Meet the Press this weekend.
This is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. I think that there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here, we're not going to prosecute it. I suspect that if the media and the American people let this case actually unfold, if they let the investigation unfold as it's currently doing, they're going to find out that what we're doing is being very deliberate and being very driven by the national interest and by the law here, and that's as it should be.
So, I don't agree with John Bolton's views. He's a voice for more military engagement. I think he's wrong on policy. I think he should be afforded every presumption of innocence like any other American. And if this was a wrongful action that's not based in him having stored documents or whatever it is, then he should be fully exonerated. It should proceed no further, and he should get an apology. But I obviously can't take the position, and nor does the mainstream media, that no one should ever have their property raided over classified. That's what they did to Trump.
Right.
That's what they did to Trump. How do you get around that?
I would argue that...
I don't know if it's political. Might be. I just don't know.
Right. Well, we don't know enough yet. I struggle with this. I'm of two minds of this. On the one hand, I do think that probably, and I'm not saying this is right, probably if you're like a senior administration official, just based on the last 10 years or so, if they went looking in your house, you probably have a classified document or two.
Sure.
Now that's more of an
Pence
issue.
had it, Biden had it.
Right. Trump
They're
certainly had
classifying
it.
these things in a way that makes it too easy for them all to commit crimes.
Exactly. I was going to say, that's really a classification issue more than it's like, ooh, let me take all this classified stuff home, right? But so it's kind of like, are you looking for a crime, and how big of a crime is it if John Bolton has one or two documents that you're like, well, this is classified, but like it's not a big deal. At the same time, we don't know. Yeah. And I think do I think that Donald Trump never said, we got to get that Bolton guy. I'm not saying he said, like, we should raid his house, but, like, the idea that Donald Trump had no clue about this or hadn't set the pretense for it. I mean, come on, like, this is the guy who he openly has said the Department of Justice and the FBI should be more politicized. They should do his bidding more. He got rid of Jeff Sessions the day after the 2018 midterm election because Jeff Sessions wasn't loyal enough to him in Trump's mind. He put people in place, Pam Bondi at AG, Kash Patel at FBI, because they would do what he wants. So I don't think we should be surprised at this. I also don't think we should jump to the conclusion, well, Bolton's obviously innocent and this is a political targeting.
Right. Because we like it. He's their friend, even though he's an advocate for like World War III. All the mainstream progressive people love him because he doesn't like Trump.
Right. I mean, I'm
totally divorced from
I don't know. Like, yes, I see the argument of like, yes, he is one of Donald Trump's most prominent critics. He served in the administration. He wrote, look, this goes back to, for people who don't know the history, the Trump administration tried to stop him from writing his book called The Room Where It Happened. They tried to stop him from getting profits off of that. Not aged well. Now, oh man,
cringe.
Yes, awkward. Awkward at the time, even more awkward now. So this is like a long-running fight between them. I'm fine to let it play out. I think that so much of what you think about the story is what you come into it with. If you think Donald Trump is just making up crimes and trying to, scare people who are critics of him, then you're like, this is the start of martial law. Mm-hmm. If you think, oh, John Bolton's a bad guy and, he probably did retain stuff, let's just see it play out, you're like, good, we should be doing this. I often feel this way. I kind of land between those two things. Like, how could anyone who I don't know what's in John Bolton's home. Two judges apparently signed warrants to go in and raid the home. Like, I guess you could say, well, they're just Trump judges, and it is a low bar. It is a low bar. But like, it's not just Donald Trump like in there bashing the door down. There's some a patina of legal okay on this. So don't know. I hate to say let's see how it plays out.
I certainly come away convinced that it's clearly too easy to inadvertently keep possession of classified documents if you're a political figure, and we need some kind of reform there. And people have been prosecuted for this, lowly people who did it inadvertently and are sitting in prison, and I think that's probably a bad thing. The reason, Trump has tried to make sure that in the second go-round, his second term, everyone around him is absolutely loyal is because of people like Miles Taylor, who bragged in the first administration of that he was going to try to subvert the president's agenda from within. It's kind of, he's going on TV now almost saying, like, look at me, give me attention, I want to be, he doesn't want to be, I'm sure, rated, but like, remember me?
I struggle because
I think that's what he's doing.
I just like, for most of these people, Trump picked these people. I mean, this is the problem I have. It's like, we're not talking about Jerome Powell, but this is the problem I have with Jerome Powell. It's like, Trump picked Jerome Powell. Trump picked John Bolton.
Yeah.
Now, you could say like, oh, I was sold a bill of goods, but there's enough people that it's like, these are not like Biden holdovers. No one thinks John Bolton is a liberal. Yeah. So,
Well, he is now in the extent that you're just totally defined by your opposition or your support for Trump.
He is in the anti. I don't know. I think it's very hard to separate out lots of people have made a living and continue to make a very good living in the I am a high-profile critic of Donald Trump. How much of that is they are simply guided by belief and they think he is dangerous to democracy, and how much are they guided by their bottom line? My guess is it's probably a little bit of both.
I mean, I think John Bolton is sincerely guided by he disagrees with Donald Trump on foreign policy, because Donald Trump has been a more restrained voice on the foreign policy stage,
and Vance,
wanting to not get involved in Vance too, conflict everywhere, arranging for the Afghanistan withdrawal, wanting to normalize relationship with the new Syrian regime, wanting to have this peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine, Azerbaijan and Armenia, whereas Bolton is like, Iran, let's go to war. North Korea, let's go to war. I believe he's advocated for much direct military confrontations with those two nations. So that's very different. So, that doesn't mean he belongs in prison or he did anything wrong, and you should be free to criticize Trump and not have your home raided because of it. So
and that's the thing that I keep coming back to. Both of those things are true, what you just said. It's like like if he's innocent, then this is political targeting to make his life uncomfortable. The problem is we have now disqualified all the referees, and so it's like we're never going to really be able to find out if he is innocent or not. I don't think.
That's true.
No, any verdict will be seen as questionable.
People will not broadly accept it either way. They'll accept
one way
it based
or the other
on their previous politics, yes.
California Governor Gavin Newsom, remember him, is stepping up his Trump trolling game. We will fill you in next. We'll be back right after this.
Bill Maher applauded California Governor Gavin Newsom's trolling of President Trump. Take a look.
Gavin Newsom is now trolling Trump. I've never seen a Democrat do this. I think it's very funny. Can you show some of the Newsom tweets that he's been putting out there? Okay, he's imitating Trump's exact style. I mean, I feel like Gavin has grasped the essential thing about American culture in this day and age. Don't try to outsmart people. You have to outstupid them.
Newsom is going beyond just stealing Trump's social-style media posts. He's jacking POTUS's merch, too. In Trump-like fashion, Newsom introduced the swag, writing, "The Patriot Shop is now open. It includes mugs, T-shirts, the quintessential red hat reading, quote, Newsom was right about everything, mirroring a MAGA hat Trump recently sported in the Oval Office." Wow. Newsom even sold Bibles for $100 a pop. They're already listed as being sold out. I mean, like, in one way, I don't know if it's a long-term political solution. In the other way, I'm with Bill Maher that, like, not everyone I read of those tweets trolling Trump is funny, but like the first time I read it with the like, "Thanks for your attention to this matter," I did chuckle. I don't know if that means anything. Are you less amused? Do you have a "I'm less amused" face?
No, I'm not particularly amused. I don't have any problem with it.
You're appropriately amused.
I'm amused by, and the conservatives who are like, oh, this is unbecoming of a governor. This isn't just, that is the funny part. It's like, okay, I don't know how you can possibly, with a straight face, say
doesn't
that.
befit the office of the presidency, Robby.
Right, exactly. No, we're well past that. He can do whatever he wants. I guess it's kind of, I mean, it points to the fact that Trump's manner of writing and speaking has its own cadence.
Yes.
And some impressions of Trump are lazier than others. And you're right that Newsom has it down pretty well. The style of writing is with the punctuation and the quotes.
Weird quotation.
It's being done correctly. From like this is how if you like he went through a course. He was taught. And he did it. He's doing it well. So I appreciate that. I don't know that it makes him. I guess it makes liberals happy because they just want. We want you to fight against Trump, even though that word "fight against Trump" has no meaning and no definition.
Well, and fight on social media against Trump has even less impact, in my opinion. Like
rebellion ever.
I always
if it makes liberals happy, I guess he should do it because he wants to get the nomination. And he might very well get the nomination.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is true that we live in an attention economy, right? And this is, in particular, our political world, it functions on attention economy. Trump gets that. I think Newsom has gotten attention for this. So I actually think it's probably good. It's the whole, like, all press is good press. At the same time, when people say, the base loves this, I'm like, okay, the very online left base does love this because anything that makes Trump look stupid, they love. But like the real base in terms of how you win a Democratic presidential nomination, Joe Biden proved this, Barack Obama proved this. The way that you win a Democratic presidential nomination, in truth, is black voters in the South. And in particular, older black women in the South, because South Carolina is super important, always has been, will be again in 2028. And then Super Tuesday, which is all southern states, and in a Democratic primary dominated by African-American votes. I'm not saying there are no older black ladies who are watching, like reading his tweets and be like, I'm sure there are. But like, it's not not all of them. And it's so the base of the Democratic Party, like the online base is one thing. The actual voting base is another thing, I think.
I see.
So it's like, I don't know how much. Somebody said, does this make Newsom the front runner? I'm like, the tweets?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a nice thing, but like, you're not going to get elected president just because. Even Donald Trump didn't, even though he said Twitter mattered, it can matter, but you're not going to elect it just because.
I mean, I think he's in the top 3 candidates by default because there's no absolutely obvious next person, and there's a lot of people interested in running, and he has more name recognition. He's done some things right. I don't want to be unfair to him. I don't want to be partisan about it.
I think he's had a very good 2025. Right. I think if you had to say who's the leader of the Democratic Party right now, I think most people would probably say Newsom, and that's good for Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And he's actually done a good job introducing himself to conservatives with that podcast he's been doing.
I know.
That it was very, very interesting.
Smart strategically. I think he's actually been very smart with all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work. It doesn't mean he's going to be the nominee, but it's 3 years ago way.
Well, that does it for us today on Rising Live. Thanks for watching, and look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can get your podcast fix. See you later.